Friday, as we venture into the verdant landscapes of career development. Today, we are joined by a most distinguished guide in the wilderness of staffing and IT, Armando Lopez. With a storied career spanning over a decade, Armando has expertly navigated the realms of account management, sourcing, recruiting, marketing, and complex sales. His deft skills have connected numerous professionals with their ideal environments. On our journey today, we will explore the meticulous art of resume crafting, akin to the intricate web spun by a master weaver spider. We shall also step into the dance of the interview, a ritual as vital to career success as the courtship displays in the wild. And we will navigate the dense underbrush of the cybersecurity job market, discerning the paths between academic degrees and professional certifications. Join us, your hosts Michael Haag and Paul Michaud, as we traverse these hidden trails with Armando, uncovering the secrets to not just surviving, but thriving.
Hey, happy Friday. I was coming out from underneath the dense underbrush of cybersecurity.
I feel like people only show up just for the intros for when we have guests because they are top tier.
Yeah.
Yeah. They get so good. Absolutely worth the intern, whatever we pay him.
Yes. Well, we're gonna need more. But yeah, that was good. I'm excited for today. We have a really awesome guest. Yeah, this will be fun. We have a good friend here today, Armando Lopez. I know him from back in the day of he helped recruit me. So yes. So yeah, I'm gonna bring him on in. Armando, hope you're ready. We're not gonna drop you in.
I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Time is flying by. We won't mention those time-dated eras because time marches on too fast.
Yeah, gosh, I know we talked about it a week or two ago or something about, was it like 2006?
Sounds about right.
Yeah. I think it was roughly.
Do you want to go right into the Mike origin story? I mean,
right. Why not? Here, we'll do quick intros and whatnot. But yeah, Michael Haag, thank you all for joining. We have our special guest Armando here today. We'll run through the circuit of intros and then we could do origin stories.
Did you want to go, Mike? Or was that your intro?
You want me to do origin first? Or
no, I was thinking was that your intro? Or
that was my short intro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the very quick version today.
I'm Paul Michaud, Senior Threat Hunter, Unit 42, and meme connoisseur.
Armando Lopez. I'm a recruiter here at Kinetic Personnel Group. If any hiring managers that I'm working with right now, I am getting back to the job requisitions pretty soon. I will get back to work. But I've been an IT recruiter and healthcare recruiter for over 15 years, and I love this industry.
Awesome. Now, you actually, Armando, are the one that got Mike his first role into the security foyer. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's, as we talk about recruiting, getting jobs, kind of the career cycle here. With Mike, that's a great example of what I do as an IT recruiter, because everyone has some preconceived notions about what we do. It's a great example of that. When people think of recruiters, what everyone really goes to, number one, is like, oh, they help people get jobs, which is kind of not right. A more appropriate term is we help clients fill their jobs or companies fill their jobs. So everyone, I don't know, for some reason doing this for 15 years, everyone thinks I'm an agent for them and I have the right to represent them. And I'm Jerry McGuire, I'm an agent, and I'm going to get you the money, right? So that's not really, that's a force agent. That's a completely different business. Recruiters really help companies fill specific jobs. And why? Go ahead.
I was going to say, honestly, when I was, I don't know, 19 or 20, when I met you, I think I thought you were an agent.
Sign the contract, Mike. Sign the contract.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a common misconception. But companies or clients in the recruiting world, they hire us when they don't really want to spend a lot of resources filling a couple positions or a lot of positions. We speed up the whole hiring process, and we save a lot of time and money and get people great candidates. And in your case, I remember part of our team, we had an open position with a company, distribution warehouse. They service a large retail chain stores, and gosh, was just desktop support or help desk through one. Do you remember the job title? Like?
I think it was like network engineer. It was like a network engineer role. Yeah.
I believe you guys go network engineer. Yeah. So I just remember your resume stood out from we post, we bring in jobs, we go to resumes. And then when it comes to me as an account manager representing that client, I just remember Mike's resume kind of floated above other ones, even though he didn't have a lot of working experience. To date myself, I was like, when I saw his resume, I'm like, this little Bill Gates, like Microsoft Bill Gates, $2 black, right? I'm like, this guy's gonna get the job, and he did, because I just saw the passion for IT in his resume, and everyone else was just trying to find a job. I'm like, I could tell like this guy is meant for IT. That's what stood out even back then.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, so I think at the time, right, I was working at like PC support, fixing printers and old computers and whatnot. I mean, back then, I think I was making $10 an hour doing this, and we had to wear at the company we were at, like everybody who worked inside the warehouse, we all had to wear we had to dress up with a tie and everything. So yeah, we had to dress up it was pretty funny. And I remember we would, we're sitting there fixing printers, throwing our tie over our shoulder, trying to fix these old dot matrix printers and everything. And yeah.
The amount of good clothes ruined working like tech support roles, crawling under desks, in closets, wires, replacements, blown out ink cartridges. You don't make enough to continuously have to buy clothes to support that kind of work environment.
Yep. Yeah,
those are the days. More wires on roofs and ceilings, on ladders. We're not buying.
Yeah, dress shoes and ladders don't mix. So, bring that up at your next meeting if that's what you currently have to do.
Yeah, generally nowadays in work settings, you should be able to dress with tennis shoes, jeans. Yeah, it's it was some party hot because you're hot part of California. So like if you're in a warehouse, the summer out there is probably 100+ degrees.
Yep. Yeah, I used to get hot out there. Yeah, wear ties every day.
Yeah. So you want to jump into it, or what do you want to do here?
Yeah, you were very prepared, which we're very grateful for because usually we're not.
It's like 4 slides.
Yeah.
So anything more than that is good.
Great. Well,
so we appreciate you taking the time. But yeah, I mean, I think you kind of introduced yourself. You work at Kinetic now.
Yes.
And this is your cool family.
That's what I do. I'm not looking at my Twitter profile picture, I'm just staring at resumes all day long. So yeah, this is my family. Got a high schooler ready to graduate, and I got some little ones in elementary school. So they see the happy side of me. They don't they don't see the constant intensity of trying to find just the right candidate during the work day. So this is why I'm family.
That's awesome. And oh yeah. Yeah, I guess kind of the quick blast is if you're looking for a great recruiter, you can go to Armando's LinkedIn page.
Yeah, you can feel free to connect with me, whether you're a hiring executive or candidate looking for a job. We're kind of going to go over that, and maybe we'll go into the slide here. You guys can be free to stop me and make this collaborative as well. We can dive as deep as you want in different parts, whether it's resumes, interviewing, ghosting, or some of the things that are going around, or even market trends, where the job market's going nationwide, regional based. But yeah, I come from IT. So in recruiting, especially IT, I came from IT, I came from the client side, not like the recruiting side, but I thought it was a good match for me, kind of my origin story. So I have a bachelor's degree in computer information systems. I did system support for a bank for a couple of years while I was going to college. Started programming, .NET programming, turn of the century, 2000. And, I can do it. I'm smart enough to do it. I'm a little bit probably not born to do it, but I work hard enough at it. Seems like programmers have a very singularity stream of conscience. Me, I'm extroverted, I'm all over the place. Maybe not so much. I'm not very good. I don't know if you guys already picked up on that. I'm not very good at nose down, just working on something in silence. That's what I do most of my days now. But when I got into the workforce, I was doing .NET development. I was doing web development for an electronics company. And the thing when I got on the road, your first professional job, it was like, yeah, this is just like school. I have projects. I got to figure them out. And it's like, at least at school, you get a project, you're like, hey, Friday's done, I turn it in, pull it on, and go sleep on the grass out from the classroom. Just deliver it, right? And have a weekend free. But like in real work, oh, great, here's your next project. Go do it. I'm like, what? So it's like the faster I work, the more projects they got. I was like, I don't like this. This is just like school. And I love the macro view, the talking part of it. So I kind of fell into staffing. I tried to parlay into technology sales, and I did technology sales. And that was fun too, but that was a lot of work too. And I found my skill set was just learn a lot of process. I couldn't really differentiate myself by being a great salesperson because I felt like technology sales, ERP sales, or cybersecurity sales. I mean, you're only good as the product you're selling, right? So being a good salesman might change it by 10% closure rate. It really mattered the product. People were like, yeah, I'm working for this product. So staffing was more about that's how I got it. Been in it for 15 years. I've been here at Committed for 11 years, and I love it. It's more quick. Today I'm like, hey, I got these open positions. Let me see if I can right? Find another Bill Gates. What do we call him today? Mark Zuckerberg, can't use that. What's the cool Elon Musk? Is that no? I don't know. So yeah, it's very quick. So now I can find and fill positions quickly. So that's how I kind of got here. So I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that's great. Yeah, I didn't realize he had kind of started out as like a developer. That's new news. But it's super
cool. .NET, C#, and .NET was just coming in. 2000. That kind of dates me right there. So Microsoft. I'm trying to stay positive. Microsoft. Okay, so let's just move forward. So
yeah. Honestly, your next slide, which was it went missing. This one. Oh wait, is it this one? Okay. Yeah. This slide. It kind of back to what does a recruiter do?
Right, and this is a great graphic I found. So yeah, so going back to that simple explanation, we work for companies, for clients to fill positions, as opposed to, hey, get people jobs, sports agent or something. So we get over requests from a finite amount of clients. A lot of it's in IT. That's how I initially got started in staffing, and then it kind of led me into other industries that were hard to find people or skill set. So we receive a requisition to fill an open position. Candidates either through our internal database of resumes, our internal network. We're on every job board out there, Indeed, Recruiter, Career Monster, Dice, hundreds more ad nauseum, right? Google Ads, LinkedIn Jobs. We have all that here. That's so we do that kind of source resumes. We'll get to that probably later. And then if you put an advertisement out for a job in cybersecurity, which is the fact that you're going to get at least 10 resumes a day. If it's something more like desktop support, you're going to have 100 resumes in your inbox. And it's so easy for people to apply. It's one of the hurdles, or it makes it an obstacle to hiring, is because you just get buried by resumes. So we go through the resumes, create a short list, we screen them, get us a short list of resumes to our clients. They agree or don't agree, and they do an interview or interview process. And then we do help facilitate a job offer. And then sometimes it can be on our payroll, temporary to hire positions. They get on board with us, and we'll assume all liability for them. They work for us, especially in like the IT infrastructure positions. You don't really know what you got because the hiring cycle is probably not really perfect for hiring people. There's a lot of issues with the way hiring is done today. It's probably a lot of you guys have experience in personal job searches. It's not 100% the interviewing, resume reviews, interviewings. What's really great is just going to work and doing that. So yeah, the temporary portion to do that, or we could just be like a traditional recruiter or a headhunter, place someone and we get a fee for placing them that's tied to like a first year salary. So it's kind of like, that's more like a realtor, like you have a home listing and then you have a buyer and you match the two and you get a fee. Not as crazy as real estate, but it's kind of similar to that capacity. So that's kind of good. And so go.
I was just gonna ask, what do you think is probably like the hardest part for you in this? Like, if you're just looking at these 6 steps, what's probably your hardest like part of the process for you to deal with every day?
The hardest part is, yeah, just you're in a sea of resumes, absolutely. And then also too, the job descriptions, right? Hiring executives or managers, a lot of, in my experience, I'm not trying to name names or call people out, but it seems like a lot of job descriptions have been written 10, 20 years ago and just get recycled. And they're poorly written. So that's probably actually more, what's really great when you have a beautifully written job description that's short, 2 or 3 points. And when I get in front of a hiring executive, I say, if you had your ideal candidate in front of you, what's your first question you're asking them? Have you done, a sim? Like, do you know the baseline, a sim Q1, where I don't know what the sim products are out there. Maybe you guys can tell me. Or hey, people are very, if they get like, just tell me that right there. Like, okay, so I need to find that sim product, someone who's had a lot of experience with that, implementing it, right? And if you look at the job description, it doesn't even mention anything like that until like the 10th bullet point, like, hey, we need sim, right? So that's another hard part. There's a lot of hard parts. But as far as hiring people, one of the pain points for candidates is kind of demonstrated by this meme. Does this meme make sense to you guys? Like, when you go for an interview, like, they're all like, hey, how's it going? Did I get the job? And, most of the time you're right in the we're right in the same boat with a candidate waiting for feedback. And that's kind of one of the reasons for ghosting too. We got into that. So, because we're all just waiting, and just waiting just keeps going. So, but yeah, back to your original question, it is kind of a job description and the flood of resumes are kind of the critical parts of the job.
It's interesting, yeah.
Any other questions before there will be a quiz?
Hey Armando, do you have a headset at all? We are having some audio troubles.
Oh, is it? I do. I think I'll run and get it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll leave commentary. I guess we can just remove them for a moment.
What's
Yeah.
funny is
my favorite is job descriptions, because it's always like, we need this like cyber decathloner who like has 25 years of experience mixed with every sim experience.
there was a Reddit thread, and I'm drawing a blank on it because it's been some time, but it's like a recruiting from hell or resumes from hell, something like that, where it basically lists like the insane job descriptions, like have 15 years of Swift experience, but Swift had come out like 2 years before, like since when that got posted. Job descriptions are very interesting. And I think somebody posted recently on LinkedIn, which was even though you could have a generic title of like network engineer or IAM engineer, right? Like identity access management engineer, the definitions of what those orgs think are insane. Like the variance you get. And so like, you're like, well, I do identity stuff now. Like, and then you go look at the thing, you're like, okay, it sounds like what I do, but the bullet points are not what I do. It's like I am engineer or whatever the topic is. It gets very interesting. And so it's like personally, as somebody who's looked at for roles, it's tough to go, well, the job title says this, but the description says this. So like, what really is it? And there's places where I applied where the job description was not even the actual job title. Like they're just like, oh yeah, we use that, but it's actually this. And I was like, yeah, that one sounds way cooler than what you have posted. So I'm still interested. So in some cases, it's actually worked out better.
Yeah. All right. Looks like Armando has a headset here. Can you hear us now? Oh, got to unmute him.
To unmute him. Yeah.
Yep. Did we unmute him? Test.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, whoa. Yes.
Is that better?
Much better. There we go.
Yeah, this should be. This is a really good microphone. So this
Is great.
Yeah. So, you want me to rehash something in 1 minute, really quick, or do you want to move on?
We can move on. Yeah, we'll get jamming.
Good.
Go for it.
Yeah. All right.
Let's roll.
Cool. All right. Unemployment.
So this is general unemployment, right? This is befuddling everyone. This is not just IT. This is across all jobs. Last week it was 3.8%. Technically, everyone should be easily finding jobs, right? According to this rate, but if you're not working, it doesn't apply to you. You're like, well, I'm out of work. Am I part of the 3.5%? So it's kind of a mystery with these numbers. So if we can go to the next slide.
I have one question.
Go for it.
Do you end up getting more requests or like people pinging you on the weekends or Friday nights?
It's business hours. That's what's great about this job, because no one's going to be, when it hits like Friday, if you don't have a job, you're like, you know what? I just think about it on Monday and enjoy the weekend. That's my theory, right? So,
yep.
Usually towards the end of a day, people who are looking to move on from their job start responding to emails and LinkedIn requests, but business hours generally.
Cool. That's awesome.
So some bad news with IT. Congratulations on staying employed. There was some pretty massive layoffs. Would you guys agree? the last couple of years in the IT industry, and this kind of illustrates 2022, 2023. I mean, it was kind of a big IT shift. I mean, IT was always hiring. And these are like the big tech firms: Google, Facebook, Meta, Alphabet, Microsoft. Some massive layoffs kind of gutted the market, and we're still feeling the effects of that in IT today. A lot of the big clients are more focused on efficiency and doing more with less, and it just trickles down. Other companies just kind of jump on the bandwagon. Oh, we're laying off, right? It's kind of a group think. And it's, well, look at the market, they're laying off. And I feel like clients are opportunistic about it to lay off people and give the incumbents, the people behind, more work. And then it increases profits. And then they have a perfect scapegoat. Oh, the economy's tough, so we got to lay you off. Sorry, no pay raises, no bonuses. You're lucky to even be working, right? A lot of these companies are just, I feel, in my opinion, are just very opportunistic. So hopefully I don't get fired from this podcast for being too candid here. But yeah, let's go to the next slide before I really start saying some. Yeah.
We haven't been sued yet, so.
Yeah, we're on good track record so far.
This is light compared to some of the other things we've done throughout the series, so you're fine.
Oh, good to know. Good to know. So specifically to IT unemployment, according to CompTIA, it's about a 0.5 point lower than general unemployment, right? So it's around 3%. So the point of this slide is, if you're in IT, you're in a great career field. You're going to probably have more choices at jobs than other fields. But I always go back to the person who's like, hey, man, I've been trying to get a job for the last 2 years in IT, get a desktop support or a system admin, or they're underemployed, right? So it's like, doesn't really help them. But yeah, but generally speaking, this is where we understand the IT market to be right now, hovering around about 3%, 2024. Slide. So I pulled this from DICE, and this could probably go into a different topic too, about working in the office versus working remotely. If you have to work in the office, there's different areas of the country you want to be working in that are experiencing a lot of growth. And this was for growth since 2022. I think this was updated almost recently to 2024. But San Antonio, Texas has been fastly growing for IT. So if you're looking to move to a place in your IT, this is where a lot of growth in IT is experiencing. San Antonio, Texas, Philadelphia, Orlando, Houston, experiencing a lot of growth. But overall, to date, if you want to work and have a great paying position in IT, on the other chart over here, it talks about, Silicon Valley still is head and shoulders, and Boston, Denver, and Seattle are kind of the top markets for working. And maybe we can, I want to ask you guys, you guys can speak specifically for cybersecurity, or maybe you can't, but are you seeing a lot of in-office jobs, or is it all just remote? What do you guys see in your career?
Unfortunately, a lot of places what I've seen recently is the hybrid push. Show up to the office a minimum of 3 days a week, 60% of your time. It's usually most places will split that, like Monday, Friday, work from home. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you're in the office. In some cases, though, if they have specific areas, it's impossible to travel to. Like the closest office for me is 5.5 hours away down in New York City. I'm not the expectation to travel 3 days in office is okay, well, you're not in a reasonable range to do that. But I'd say there's definitely an interesting push. And I think part of that, though, and maybe other people have perspectives, is because organizations have blown millions of dollars on the whole idea of real estate and getting money back from that and investment off of that.
Okay.
And when people work from home and they're not in the office, well, that goes down for the property value, which means that org loses money. But not my fault. You spent millions of dollars in the prime time of the real estate boom, and then now we're losing money potentially. Like that's a you problem, but
Right. Got
not
it.
a me thing.
So do you feel like your career is hindered at all by being 100% remote?
No, I think there's. I think you have to be strategic, at least in my opinion, and how I look at it. Right, like a part of it is like the company I want to work for, and B, like, you know, if there was a place down near me, and they said do hybrid, I'm like, well, depending on the travel time, sure, maybe. But for me, like, I prefer to be remote, but I don't think it's a full hindrance of, well, you're 50% less capability of getting a job now versus somebody who says, well, I'll show up in Denver or Boston or Orlando, right? Because that market size,
Got it.
well, is
Yeah.
growing, could be small for in person.
What about your personal development? Working with your team, being connected with your team, being connected with your company, getting that next promotion. Do you feel like you can do that being remote?
Sure. I think that's all about, I look at it two ways. One is you as the person need to find your groove in how you operate as a remote employee and how you stay engaged with the team, the organization, the vision, etc., and getting the work done. I also think that's also on the organization when they do have a either fully remote or a hybrid workforce, that creating things of meaningful ways to interact and build that camaraderie or ensure that. Do I think that just because you're remote that limits kind of like what we're seeing with, I'll say, names like Dell recently saying that you're not getting promoted if you're a full-time remote employee? Like, what's the difference? I do more work at home in the past 4 years than I did when I worked in offices. Like sometimes I'd realize like 2.5 hours is blown and we've been standing around like doing something completely different, not even work related. And you're like, oh yeah, it's time to get back to work. It's easy to blow 2 hours like that, or an hour or 20 minutes from the extended break. So
right. And you personally feel like you're being productive and working away. I found in 15 years of doing staffing, working remote, sometimes people do get left on an island and forgotten. So I don't know if it's up to the person to really stay plugged into the company, collaborate, and grow. Or I think a big part of it is how the organization's set up. But historically, remote's been around even before COVID. But in general terms, and this might not apply to cybersecurity industry, but if you're working remote for whatever job, it's easy to get left behind by the organization, and only your supervisor really knows what you're doing, and you're lost on that island. Now, and I love working for remote. I have a young family. I want to be home as much as possible. I don't want to be driving, wasting time. I either want to be working or being with my young family. But the reality is, in my career, helping the company and growing professionally, I do need to be here, right? So that's kind of a fact for my industry. And but yeah, historically, I would say general, when I'm talking to people, even pre-COVID, I've seen that people feel like they're left alone on an island when they're working remote. Have you experienced that or seen that? Maybe not in cybersecurity, because you guys are it's so like, I feel like it's easily built for remote work, but some industry not so much.
Yeah, I have a buddy who he works at a kind of large company, and he's asked me over the years, like he had always been in the office 5 days a week. I've been remote for, I guess, 8-9 years now or something. And he's always like, oh, are you always worried about promotions or missing your team or anything like that? And I think it really does come down to that company culture and your manager and having a good team. Like over here at Splunk, our group is completely remote. We have people all around the world. And so and we operate just as well as someone who's on site, in a cube farm. But it just depends. But I remember prior org where I was at, when we were at Red Canary, there was definitely that feeling sometimes where what they're doing on site it's not coming back to the remote people. And so the remote people do get left out from like on-site activities, not like fun activities, but like what's going to happen as far as leadership and guidance of the company, where things are going. If you're remote, you kind of lost that.
They weren't considered. It just, that was a default. Yeah. It is what it is, right? So,
and you could be a little left out. So, but yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
If you want to go into the next slide, we can continue the conversation. This kind of talks about the previous market. This is why Mike works remote right here. That's what I would say. That meme right there. You literally, can you see a live stream out your window over there in Idaho, Mike?
I got a fence.
Sounds like a stream is nearby. Great. Let's go to the next slide.
Yes.
We kind of covered that area. If you're in tech, who pays the most? I mean, it all comes back to money. Aerospace seems to be absolutely for cybersecurity and IT. There is a difference about industries and especially companies. I don't know if a school district's going to pay for a threat researcher like you, top dollar, compared to a cybersecurity firm, right? So companies and industries pay differently. So everyone's trying to maximize. Some of the industries you look in, aerospace is top for paying their cybersecurity and IT people, and then software, obviously. And there's a complete list of some of the top paying. And there's big differences depending on who you work for. Absolutely. If we can go on to the next slide, if you want.
Absolutely.
Or question.
Yeah.
Go for it.
No, you're good. We're good. I think we have one question from the audience, but we'll ask in a second.
Okay. And then talking about within the IT career, what are the highest paying jobs, so obviously management, solution architect, second, cybersecurity, top 5, looking strong there. Good job, guys. You guys made smart career choices, planning ahead. You guys are very, but the good thing about IT is compared to, if you look at other jobs outside of IT and cybersecurity, a lot of the higher paying jobs equivalent to this require a lot of education beyond a bachelor's degree, master's or doctorates, where you can get started in IT with a bachelor's degree or a certification. And you're compared to other job categories, you would need master's degrees to make the same amount of money. So that's what's great about IT. Education and certifications are quicker, easier to attain, and easier to move up. So, and then, what about this thing on the right here? Highest paying cybersecurity jobs. Would you guys agree with this? Well, this is talking about increases year over year. Information security engineers and for information security analysts having the most growth. Network security engineers. Are you guys seeing a lot of growth in your pay rates year to year? Or as you're hiring for your team, offering more compensation? You guys see the growth?
So yes and no. I think right now is a very interesting time because a lot of last year and even starting a little bit before, there's been a massive shift in with layoffs, right? And then you're seeing potentially like 4 to 6 weeks later, the same organization hiring the same people that they just laid off. But the objective was to decrease the cost because they're paying people too much. But in reality, right, you're paying for the knowledge somebody brings to solve the problem. So while some of these numbers look good, I think they don't necessarily match the reality of potentially what's going on in how things are working. Now, again,
are they being opportunistic and bringing them in a lower compensation package?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The whole idea is to pay them the least amount of money, right? To raise the pockets up of the shareholders or the venture capital, right? You either have two.
Got it.
You basically have two things. You have shareholders if you're a publicly traded company, or if you're in the SaaS startup world, you're venture backed. And there's a third option, which is the private bootstrap funded, which they're in a different boat,
right?
In my opinion,
they're all watching their dollars. It's their money, and they're looking to minimize costs and maximize profits. And yeah, that's a good point you bring up. And you see that as people do massive layoffs to get rid of some of the higher paying. They try to outsource to third parties to get some of the work out, or they just bring in people at lower career stages and pay them less. Absolutely, that happens.
And hope to build them up.
Yeah. Next screen, if you guys want to move on. So in LA, this is an example, and we have different shades because it really matters at where you work, right? and kind of goes to the point where, look at my resume, I'm worth $150,000, $100,000, $200,000. Really, it's up to the company you're going to and what they have budgeted for the position is what ultimately comes down to. And that's why you have variations of security engineers being paid differently, and there's different tiers, because it depends on ultimately how much a company sees value in that position, right? If you're in the finance industry or healthcare industry and you're hiring security people, there's a high cost and value return for hiring those people. But if you're a security engineer, unfortunately today, I don't know why I'm going to school districts, but school districts, yeah, I mean, everything's computerized now. I mean, the cost of doing business is you have to have a well-run IT organization. IT is revolutionizing every industry, and it's only going to get more and more and more. So you got to pay these people more and more because your businesses are so tied in to what's happening on their IT networks. If you want to go to the next, if any questions, or you want to go to the next screen slide.
No, it's always interesting to see, like, again, the more, I don't want to say generic, but like when you think of security engineer, from me seeing hundreds of different job postings for the job title of security engineer, it's so wild. And I think Mike and I were talking about this a little bit earlier of, one company says, this is what we define as a security engineer, and the other company says, no, that's what we define, and they're not even related. And then you get into the actual job description or requisites, and you're like, that's not a security engineer, that's a completely different title, and then you get into the great debate. So I'd say for anybody, it's always just take these types of things with a grain of salt and really put in perspective is that description is not the same, or that definition is not the same for everybody.
Yeah.
So hopefully don't use it as like, oh, well, a security engineer makes $250K. I'm going to go be a security engineer and think that it means the same anywhere you go. It is not the case.
Great point. Right.
So
Absolutely.
Be careful. But
I have a question, Armando. I was talking to someone recently looking to get into cybersecurity, and she was concerned about not having enough experience. And let's say, I mean, she's getting her master's, she's right there, and she's done some great like cybersecurity like based projects and whatnot. It's kind of public, like things that, she has stuff out there. Would you, and if she saw a role, let's just say security engineer like this, would you just say, even if she wasn't qualified enough, would you just say, just apply and get the resume in there? And
well, they do. Absolutely. They apply, and I see it all the time. So, and to that point, and I might have mentioned it off the air or maybe on the air, but for an IT person, that's the hardest part of your career, is making a transition from academia to a professional career. You just got to get that first job, because things change. It's so hard to do because there's a lot of people in school. There's a lot of people with no work experience, and especially in cybersecurity. If I'm wearing my career advisor hat when I'm talking to them, I said, hey, you just find whatever's near to you, even if it's a PC tech or a help desk, and you got a security plus from CompTIA, and you've got a master's degree in cybersecurity from the local state university. I'm like, you really have to pay your dues. You have to go PC. You got to go to the endpoint. You got to get into the logs of Windows machines or Mac machines, and then the network, and then the servers. There's no shortcut for doing that. And if they hire you and you get in that, you're going to be in over your head. Would you guys agree with that? If you hired someone straight from a master's degree and have all these certifications and threw them into a mid-level security engineer position, how would they do?
For me, I think it's dependent on the person. I think for some people, could they do it? 1,000%, right? Like if you focus and understand how to differentiate the idea of academia versus understanding real-world business operations, I think it's doable. But I don't think every person could do it. For me, I didn't have a college degree until I was already in the workforce, like years and years later. I started in the help desk, had a Sec Plus, got a recruiter to help me get my first security analyst job, right? Like, sure, that's the route I took. Yeah, but it doesn't mean that that's the way you have to do it or that you should do it. But I also think that there is the realization that there is a hard difference in academia versus real world business operations. And I think for most people, that idea is lost, and that sometimes, well, I have this degree, I should be making this amount coming straight out the gate. Like, I personally don't think so in some cases. Do I think you could in certain spots? Absolutely. But I think that's a very small percentage from that standpoint.
Yeah. And so it's risky if you do make that choice and hire them. You're rolling the dice. Absolutely. And what I tell people who are just coming straight out of academia, I just take an IT job, go knock it out and move on. They're so fixated on top dollar and paying back everything. It's like, it's coming. Just have some patience. 2 to 4 years of experience will change everything, even if it's just help desk. And especially if you have that cybersecurity, where we're talking about a whole picture about a candidate. So I would recommend to her, Mike, just like, hey, just take any IT job, cut your teeth, keep pushing certification, keep learning, and learn what you can in your organization. Absolutely. But it's tough. There's no easy way about it. I have this conversation with IT candidates every week, and it's like, it's tough. You're like, I got a master's.
I was going to ask, does it come off a little like Debbie Downer-ish when you have to tell them like it's going to be a little bit, or is it just like, no?
You know what? No, they feel like enlightened, and they're like, yes, because they probably feel embarrassed, like, oh, I went to school for all this, and what are you doing? Oh, I'm working at, distribution warehouse in Temecula, fixing PCs, So I'm like, no, that's awesome. That's gonna look great on your resume. Just don't get stuck there. Just do your 2 years, and then once and this goes to the hiring process that's kind of flawed. Maybe let's go to the next slide. Maybe it talks about that too. Maybe that'll be a good intro to it. Or maybe not. We'll see what the next slide sees. Certification. Let's go to the next slide. Networking, how to get you. Let's go to the next slide. Kind of. We're good. So a proper job description, right? In a hiring manager, right? Let's go to the next slide. Okay. We'll just stop right there. So, and I lost my train of thought, so help me out. So we were talking about that person. Oh, they feel enlightened. Okay. Absolutely. It's common. They're like, thank you, because they feel embarrassed to be taking a PC tech or help desk tier 1 or network. I'm like, no, that's where you need to be right now, paying your dues. So they never feel, and like I said, going back to the point, 3 years from now, they're off and running. I say, get your experience, start studying for your CISSP, and just start moving, because everyone's so fixated on max dollars. And I get it. We did it. I did it. Probably everyone did it. But just some patience.
That's a good question too, as far as like, I think when we talked about the show initially too, is like about like certifications and whatnot. And you just mentioned the CISSP here. Are you seeing this as like, as a good way to get to you, the recruiter, to an organization, or to like the hiring manager and things like that? Like, is this what should folks kind of get into certifications, and like, how do I get to you to call me back?
Right. So it goes back to that job description, and what's hot in the market today, especially for cybersecurity, is that CISSP certification, the CIS. It seems like, hey, they want the networking certifications, but then they want the CIS. And it kind of goes back to kind of what's wrong with the hiring process, and kind of what's, there's some great people out there that know how to hire, and they're not looking for the checklist. The safe way to hire is like, hey, I'm going to hire a cybersecurity engineer. I want someone who's had 7 years of experience with a cybersecurity job title. I want the CIS certification. I want a Security Plus certification. I want at least a bachelor's degree, and preferably an MBA or a master's too, right? That's the safe way to hire, right? And you can hire that and still have the wrong candidate, right? So, but that's the safe way to hire, is like, once they check off all this stuff, then we can offer them a job. And it kind of goes back to, running a lean and mean, efficient organization. There's just no time to train. Everyone's looking to cut costs. So if you're going to bring someone on, you don't want to train them. You just want them to plug and play. You want them to hit the ground running.
Interesting.
So that's a hindrance to hiring people, because for finance industry or healthcare industry, or, there's only like a couple of people walking around in Southern California that are finance, cybersecurity engineers that know PCI compliance in and out, right? Who's available right now? I'll find them. Give me a call, Armando at Kinetic Personnel Group. But if they're out there, I will find them. But it's a timing issue, really. It's a finite amount of people who read that. But honestly, the day-to-day doing the job, you need someone who can read logs, read the regulatory document, say, okay, give me some time, I'll come up to speed, we'll get us compliant, right? People don't want to give that time. That's a big hindrance to hiring, is people just want people to hit the ground running, no ramp up, no training. But the good managers and the good companies, they're like, I don't care, Armando, I don't need assist. You got someone with Security Plus, they don't even need a bachelor's degree. And if they're reading logs, I want them, right? Send them my way, right? And yeah, the smart one, I get fired talking this way, but a different type of hiring manager can train once they know what they need, right? And then, and they can grow their career there. But the safe way is yes. And that's what a lot of big organizations are like, looking to be safe. When you do a hire, everyone's looking at the hiring manager. Everyone's looking at this person. I mean, their credibility's at stake. Their stature in the company's at stake. It's a very human political environment, every company.
Yeah, it's interesting hearing you talk about this. I just have not, it's been a while. So hearing just the conversation of like a recruiter and talking to the business and dealing and politics, and let's just hire someone who can just get it done. And it's interesting.
Well, bigger the organization, you must meet the minimum requirements of that job description. And hopefully, if you have a well-written job description, it would allocate for not saying, hey, I'll take an extra 4 years of experience in place of a bachelor's degree. Or if you can just really cut down what you need to 2 or 3 bullet points, everything else is just making it harder to fill that position. And the people are out there, absolutely.
Here's a poll that maybe we should put on for like a couple weeks and see how much feedback we can get, which is, because a lot of people talk about, well, I need a bachelor or master's degree. In the field of cybersecurity, those degrees are probably 10 to 12 years old in some schools that have had it since the early to, very early 2000s. There's only a handful, right? So the idea of, well, I need a bachelor or master's, right? How much that you learned in academia was directly translated to that job description that said you have to have a bachelor or master's degree? In my opinion, from even the companies that said, well, you need a bachelor's degree, and I was like, well, I don't have one, but I can still do this. It was probably very, very minimal, maybe like 2%. So I am curious to say how much of that, because in reality, you just want somebody who's done that thing, right? Who cares if you did it in school or at work? If you know how to do it and understand the fundamental idea, I feel like that shapes it. But
great question.
What's your perspective on that?
Yeah. So, if you're coming right out, I have a 17-year-old about to head into college. Hey, go get your bachelor's degree. Don't worry about your master's. Go work. And then once you know what you want to do, get a master's degree or a certification. Certifications are quicker. What's hot in the marketplace right now, this current place? I don't need a master's degree in cybersecurity to get a cybersecurity job. I want the CISP, right? I want at a minimum, Security Plus certification. Those are not 2-year programs, right? Those are hot, Security Plus, CISSP. Also, what's a hot when it comes to management, as we go back, remember that screen we saw, that to be a top paid IT person, it's in management, right? And so PMP from PMI, a project management professional from the Project Management Institute, is very hot across all industries. I say that's more bang for your buck than an MBA. Is just get a PMP. And if you want to do agile development or just PMP, with a PMI type of certification. Those are very, by my clients and what I see in Southern California, that's a way to get into management is a certification. And a security plus, absolutely. So going back to the question, is a master's degree worth it? Honestly, these certifications are way more bang for your buck. If you want to go into the public sector, if you want to work for a county or a city or the state of California, you need master's degrees, you need more education and certifications. A lot of the public sector government work, their job requests, it's going to list it. It's going to list bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, certification, this regulatory compliance. And if you really want to grow into the public sector, that's all it's a lot of schooling. Absolutely. And it's a lot more policy focused, and they rely on their vendors to get everything done. So, but getting the work done, you don't need all that sort of education. So does that make sense?
Sure. It's always the great debate.
Yeah.
And it's generalities. There's exceptions to the rule. We can go to the next screen. They were supposed to be there.
Sorry.
Yeah, go to the next screen. That's me chasing, trying to just get a good job description. So going forward, talking about the job market, some great places to work for maximize the career. I mean, as we look 10 years down the road, and everyone's security and compliance is a great field to be in. Next slide. Blockchain is, everyone's, we're going to start talking about Bitcoin and altcoins and Dogecoin. Computers are coming for everything. It's coming for the finance industry. It's going to be blockchain. You want to work in finance 10 years from now, you're going to be in blockchain. And then go to the next slide. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, LLMs. This is what's coming, right? Back in I don't want to date myself. Back in the 90s, when I was in school, it was the hot markets were a web developer, right? You're gonna like interactive web pages. That's the future. Now we're in the future, and we have plenty of Web 2.0 applications out there. That's what I would tell people in the 90s. Hey, go into web development, right? Oh, there's plenty of jobs just making websites, and then after that was mobile development, mobile apps. As we look forward, these are what's coming next. Are they going to be replacing, artificial intelligence? From what I've seen so far, I mean, they're just going to make robust tools for cybersecurity, for programmers, for lawyers, for recruiters. We're using AI now. It's just helping streamline internal processes. Could you make an artificial intelligence recruiter? I could probably see that in 10 years from now. There's a lot of face-to-face interactions. There's a lot of trust when you're talking about jobs and getting hired. I don't think people are just going to rely on a chatbot to quit their job and go take another job because a chatbot said, you're a perfect fit for this position. Here's the offer. I just don't see it replacing, So yeah, what do you guys see coming? Do you guys agree? What else do you see coming in IT?
I'll let Mike start.
Yeah, I definitely think the AI thing is going to get hotter. I think the machine learning folks who know ML really well know that what they've been doing is almost the same or near the same, and they just can almost convert to AI and make even more money by putting AI in front of it instead of ML. I think they have a good opportunity there. So if you know machine learning really good, just slap AI in front and you're moving up.
You're off and running.
Data scientists, I've been saying probably for almost 10 years, the data scientist or any kind of data analyst type role is definitely a hot thing to have and or do and be able to do. I definitely feel some kind of data, something like that.
Good.
Being able to manipulate data and see and view is definitely a big one.
That's foundational. That's foundational to the next step of AI. And so data analysis in your current job, is that equally as important? Are you guys using like SQL or data analyst tools and statistics? Are you guys going to statistics and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Splunk. Yeah, I mean, here at Splunk, right? It's a lot of those features and functions are built into it. So yeah, you're able to do a lot of the manipulation and analyst. There's a lot of ML thingies built into it, so you can mess around with that, and you can learn a lot. Then on the side, you could bolt on. Like I don't know enough about it, but I think it's called DSDL. But yeah, you can bolt on different functions to where you can take your machine learning stuff to the next level.
Got it.
Too. And I know,
and
Paul,
going back to our previous point about business intelligence, data analysis. That's fun. That's a great place to start your career too today. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
No, I would say from like my perspective, with the amount of telemetry that cloud platforms, your endpoint logs and EDR, XDR generate, you have to have some background in data science or at least basic statistics to help, because just the vast amount of it you're talking not just megabytes or gigabytes. Now you're talking terabytes and petabytes potentially daily that you have to go and try and find evil in, right? Like you and I only have 8 hours of our workday, right? We don't work 24 hours a day. We're not, machines. So we have to be smart about what we're focused on. And I think data scientists, data analysis, right? Some of that statistics using SQL or other tools, right? Your SIM is a huge tool in that. Do I think AI is coming from my job personally? No. I don't feel that this will ever replace me, because we said the same thing about machine learning 10 years ago, and it hasn't solved a problem. It's helped solve problems, but it hasn't fully eviscerated the problem like I think people think. And I feel like AI is the exact same way. And it will be. I think it will be a component in the overall tool belt, but not the tool belt itself.
Yep.
Great.
That's me.
Great. If you want to go to the next slide, see what I got there. Resumes, right? So I know we're hitting the hour mark.
Do you still have a couple minutes, or are you able to?
I'm good.
Okay.
It's like you guys are good. I'm going to get to those jobs. The resume's coming. If any of my clients are on the line right now, I'm going to get to it. You'll have a resume by the end of the day. I promise. Hopefully. So if you're looking for a job or you update your resumes, there's some like that middle resume right there that's graphical. Looks great in person, hard copy, absolutely horrible for online LinkedIn or resume databases. You want to be traditional. You want to be text. You don't get fancy with the graphics because you're going to get lost. And as I mentioned before today, there's hundreds. I put up a job posting. I'm getting 100 resumes, right? And if it's got graphics, I'm barely seeing a name. I'm seeing just I move on because I can't read it, right? And so yeah, stay away from the graphics. Text space. Obviously, as going forward after this, I'm always happy to put on my resume review hat. If anyone wants any support, you're always welcome to reach out to me. We can set up a time. Just send me a resume, what you have. I can give you a quick critique. I even kind of edit it. It's more about formatting, and some people bury their talents. The only thing I'll say about when you're writing a resume, especially that object, you got to make it very plain and very plain speak who you are and what you do, right? If you're a security engineer or a threat analyzer or a project manager, or you got to be transparent. You can't say, well, I'm going to list this, and they're going to see that I listed, Q1 radar or something. They're going to see I'm a magic SIM. I'm like, no. You got to say it. I'm a magic SIM operator or whatever. You got to be very plain and forthcoming when writing this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Would you guys agree?
I like the magic SIM operator. That's a new tagline for our show.
Gotta go up to my resume. Hold on.
There you go. How many machines are broadcasting in the middle of the night you guys are missing? We won't talk about that, but hey, it's baseline behavior. Yeah, it's okay. It's always broadcasting in China. It's supposed to do that.
I am the SIM.
I love that. That's interesting. Yeah, because I've been seeing a lot of the colorful resumes, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I'm just like, cool resume, but yeah, I feel the traditional alt text is old, but that's just
And really, if they want to see the pictures, they're going to go to your LinkedIn profile. So put all the pictures there, put a smiley. People cringe whenever I say this. And so this is a LinkedIn resume, frequently asked question, frequently advice. Please, I'm going to look straight at the camera. When you're updating your LinkedIn profile, please smile, look at the camera, and just give me a professional smile. I don't want chin up, no smile. I don't want sunglasses. I don't want model shoot. I don't want wedding picture, even though some of my pictures are. I want a professional look at the camera, give me a smile. It is so hard for people to do that. I don't know why. It's they were like, no, I like the one with the sunglasses on and looking cool. And I'm like, look, we don't need any modeling. We just need a neutral, positive smile. That's how you're going to interview, right? You can put your pictures there, and LinkedIn should match your resume. So that's my one tip for everybody. Let's go review everyone's LinkedIn profiles after this.
So we do have one.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one question related to resumes, which was, should skills always be listed at the top?
I like skills at the top, especially it really quickly tells you who you are, right? Skills and your most recent accomplishment, or even if you're in school and you just got a master's degree, that needs to be at the top, right? Whatever you do recently needs to be at the top, and whatever you're trying to get, yes, skills should be at the top. You can even get rid of objective. You can just replace it with skills, and then your most recent job or most recent education experience. But you need to make it plain, and you need to make it very like, hey, I want to be I want to be a .NET programmer. I want to do mobile development. I want to do native mobile development, right? I want to do iOS. I want to do Android. I want to be a project manager. I want to do agile. I want to do stand-ups, right? I want to be a project manager. I want to be capital projects, right? You got to be very clear in those skills, and don't get so, hey, works well with others, and communicate. Be very specific, right? Just try to tell me what you're going to be doing. I have them on mine. I don't get mine.
Yeah. Should people still put, proficient in Microsoft Office? Like, are we out of that phase?
They do. So yeah, great question. Office needs to be in there because HR is looking at your resume and are like, well, they got to be proficient in Office. I don't see it on the resume, so I'm going to move on. So yes, I would say keep it on there.
Wow.
I feel like, though, in even high school and college now, you've probably mastered at least Word or Google Sheets to where is it still required?
I would recommend proficient in Excel, proficient in Excel, Word, right? Outlook. I can write emails, right?
I would not. Have I used Excel? Sure. Am I proficient in written formulas? No.
Formulas, macros, pivots. Yeah. So I would be very specific, right? I wouldn't say Office because Office is so huge now, right? So that includes Teams, includes Visio, so get specific. Proficient, expert in Excel, competent in writing emails, Outlook. So I'm gonna get fired here. Scheduling, Outlook, right? I can schedule whole teams and groups and communications with vendors, team members, and executives, right? Skills is essential. List what you want to do. I would use that skills to bullet point what you want to do. A lot of things, what people forget to do too, is say, hey, you're bilingual, trilingual. List that. There's a lot of people especially now that we're a global type of economy. I'm like, you're like, yeah, I speak 3 languages. I'm like, that's not on your resume. That's such a unique skill. Absolutely. List it. I get it. So.
I barely speak one, so impressive for anybody who speaks more than that.
Yeah.
Especially proficiently.
I don't. So
you can say you speak binary and English. I mean,
what's more complex? You still speak assembly language? Talk to me in register.
Web assembly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Assembly, machine assembly. Boy, just going back. We're going to hardware side now.
Talk HTML. Oh, one more question here, Armando. 1 page or 2 page or multi-page resumes?
Yeah, IT, as many pages as you want. Yeah, you don't want it long, but if it's relevant, you don't want white spaces. You want to fill the entire thing up. If it's 2 pages, if you're listing your technology, you don't just list stuff to list. List the technology and the platforms you're in. Always, I like the last thing in a job, the last bullet point to be the environment you're in. Like if it's a Microsoft shop or it's an open source Linux shop, or it's like, tell me all the technology platforms you touch there at the bottom. What ERP software, what what platforms you're on. That's very helpful because a lot of going back to how people hire, they want to match the environment with the candidate, what they're familiar with.
How do you weed out? So if I put all those things on my resume,
Yeah.
How do you weed out the fact that I actually know this or not?
So yeah, anything you list on a resume is open game for an interviewer to ask you. You list it, you better tell me why you did it, what you did in it, and how you did it. Don't just list it to list it. If you can't explain it, don't add it.
Yes.
As somebody who has interviewed people who have listed technologies they've never used before, I second that. If you list it, it's on the docket.
It's open game. Go to the next slide if you guys want. This kind of goes into what we're talking about.
Okay.
So the interview process, right? Here we go. So what have you guys experienced? Maybe just one interview, couple steps interviews. Well, let me open it to you, Mike. What's your advice to give people when they go to an interview?
I mean, I think I've always had multi-step level of interviews. I don't think I've ever really had an easy one other than back in the day with Southwest Traders. But yeah, I mean, overall, now it's always been, 5 or 6 people and multiple days. And it's being remote now. It's just you kind of just wear a button up and just kind of show up on camera.
Right.
It's way too formal, Mike.
What about you, Paul? What's the interview advice?
You show up with their hat on, like, yeah, what's up? This is what you get.
Look, my one advice is don't show up in a bright neon colored tank top crushing a White Claw on camera. Just
I heard about this interview.
Oh, jeez. So if you just sip the White Claw, you've been okay. So
at least just cover the label. Like, look, I'm not here to judge you on should you be drinking or not drinking. That's a moral question for you to answer.
Right.
But from a perspective of your future employer and colleagues, maybe put it in a cup if you're using it to calm your nerves, right? Like, I know I get very anxious and nervous around interviewing, but no,
don't ask me what's in this cup. Yes, thank you.
I really try and keep it simple. And talking with some people that are currently on the market looking at roles and doing the interview process, it's ask questions, right? Like, what's the formality? The worst thing is showing up in a suit and tie, and then people show up in a t-shirt, right? Like, from the hiring side, please communicate those things, right? If it's a very relaxed environment, please communicate that. But also as the interviewee, right, ask those questions. What should I expect for this interview? What should I expect for this one? Because to say like, well, you're interviewing for security engineers, so just be ready for anything. No, I want to be ready for the things that are relevant to what you're trying to do. So I ask questions. Worst thing, they say, here's some like high level bullet points, and it's still maybe not enough, but ask those questions so you can at least prepare yourself. Again, dress code, I ask them, like, what's the preference, right? If it's just a clean t-shirt, right, plain Jane, call it a day. If they're saying, I like a little bit more formal, maybe again, a polo or a button up, but really just clarify it. Don't assume.
Great, great point. And have you guys done, as Mike disappears, I was going to say, have you guys done hiring too? When it comes to interviewing, we can go into that afterwards really quick if you guys want. But the interviewing advice I give everybody, I would feel like it's okay to be overdressed. It is a first impression. Being in this industry, the whole interview process, I've seen studies. You definitely want to be put on your best foot forward. And there's usually a couple of ways that people show up to interviews. Number one, they're really nervous, right? And advice I give people is you want to, what's happening when you meet someone for the first time is they're unconsciously judging you. And what they're unconsciously judging you about is very, what people, when you first meet anyone, whether it's an interview or a first encounter, unconsciously, we are saying, is this person trustworthy? That is what's going on in a first encounter. That is definitely what's going on in an interview. And it's natural to be nervous and tight-lipped. I'm like, hi, I'm here. I want to get hired by Splunk. Thanks for taking time. And if you show up like that in a first environment, unconsciously, people are already like, what's wrong with this person, right? And some educated people will be like, oh, he's nervous. It's okay, right? But as opposed to what I recommend is just, hey, smile. And it's easier said than done. Just give me a smile. Just look in the camera, give me a smile, be positive, be easygoing. Because the first encounter, if you smile at people, especially if it's in person or on the camera, if you're uneasy, if you're not making eye contact, you're sparking up that untrustworthy feeling in the hiring manager is what's going on. So I always recommend, especially if it's in person, look him in the eye, give him a smile, say, hey, thanks for taking time, right? And easier said than done, because I get super nervous in new environments, and I understand it. But also, too, some people, I don't know if this still happens. Maybe you guys in the hiring position, especially in IT, do people still come in with huge egos and the rock star type of mentality? Have you guys experienced that still?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't recommend you do that, right? So
check the egos, people.
Yes. So in the interview process too, I generally speaking, I say 50% of it is technical. What's the minimum requirements? You got the interview because you check off all those boxes. What's really being evaluated is soft skills, maybe even more than 50%. Can I work with Mike for the next 2 years? Do I want Paul to be part of my team? Do I want to see Paul every day? Right? That is what they're looking at. They're looking for chemistry. They're looking, do I want to be around this person? And that's what's going on. Chemistry, soft skills, how you communicate, and then professional environment, the ego stuff. Yes, please. No, you're going to get, you're more, even if you get the job offer, you're going to rub someone the wrong way. You're going to be shown the door. Right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying, I think to the point that you just made, it's also important for you as the interviewee. You're also doing those things. Do you want to work for these people, right? Did the interviewer give you a bad experience to where if that person's going to be your boss, do you want to work for them, right? Are you going to be excited to show up and have that kind of relationship? So don't think that just because you're the one being grilled, no, it's the other way around too, right? So when you're the top tier candidate potentially walking in the door, the company wants top tier candidates. So the people interviewing need to be on the best as well. It's a representation of the company. So don't forget that, right? The ball is in your court just as much as the other people.
So, and that kind of goes into, I was going to ask you guys, do you guys, in your interviewing history, did you guys get this question? Tell me about yourself. Paul, Mike, did you get that every interview?
Yeah, I personally hate it.
Yeah.
You guys got it every interview. Does it start off every interview? Is that how they start?
Yeah, usually on the first one. Usually on not so much the recruiter screen or the initial one, but it's usually the first one of usually it's a 2 or 3 interview process, that kind of the first one with the core part of the team. But yeah, it's really just, I like to keep it simple, keep it high level, right? 30 seconds in and out, even shorter if possible, right? Talk about the relevancy, kind of the areas that you're interested in, things that are relevant to the role that are going to kind of plant seeds in their head of things to potentially go ask me about, right? Because if I can, because you mentioned things about, as an interviewer, you're potentially going to roll into biases and heuristics that impact your ability to judge a candidate. Well, as an interviewee, I want to do it's the same, right? I want to input biases to you to potentially favor me. And if I do that by doing things to plant seeds, to say things where I'm going to potentially cue you up later to ask me something, to put my best foot forward because you're intrigued and now I can show my skills and help take the nerve away. Like, yeah, you got to play the game. And if you understand biases and heuristics, you can turn the interviews around in your favor within that first 30 seconds or a minute.
Yeah, you're kind of revealing what you want to do, right? You know, where you came from, where you're at now, where you want to go.
Exactly.
It's kind of those three things you need to do. Don't say, well, you know, back in 1972, there was a Mexican boxer by the name of Armando that my dad liked. And it's like, yeah, we don't need all that. We just need, hey, I went to school for CIS. I've been doing .NET development. I've done a couple projects. I'm currently focused on C#, and this is really dating me. You know, I'm hoping to become you know, a web developer, and I'm looking to go and create multi-tiered websites or something, right? Tell me where you're going. Tell me where you came from. Tell me where you're at right now. Tell me where you're going, right? And they're seeing your communication style. They're seeing who you are, right? And then they go, and then they, you know, obviously they jump into your resumes. And then usually they start going like, tell me about this, tell me X, tell me about Y, tell me about Z. And so, yeah, they're getting to know you, right? And how you communicate, and it all comes out, right? So I always say, yeah, so it just always goes back to the soft skills for me. Just be easygoing, go with the flow. It's obviously don't get in arguments. Don't try to show them how smart you are. If anything, you just want to be easygoing team player, go with the flow, right?
Stick to what you know.
Yeah, and then when you get a job, please keep that up as well. So yeah, so interview process, that's kind of what it is. That's the one thing I just cannot labor more is it's your soft skills are probably even more important in that first interview as your technical skills. And then if you go to panel interviews, those are more challenging, right? You guys all mentioned that you had multiple steps. Those are harder to get because sometimes they're looking for buy-in from every person you meet. So you need to create that chemistry with everyone you meet along the way too, because it only takes one person in a panel interview to say no, and you're donezo, right? So when it's a properly done panel interview,
Sure.
so yeah, it's go for it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point on panel interviews. There shouldn't be just a single person that says no, right? Because generally that type of thing is potentially informed by a bias, or that matters. So hopefully the interviewers have had good training that understand the potential bias, and that when they're done, they take it offline, they understand. And sometimes, because once you make that decision, right, you see on LinkedIn all the time, I interview a candidate in the first 10 or 20, 30 seconds, I know if I'm going to hire them or not. Like, I don't want to work for that person because they've let their biases completely take over and completely overrun that whole process. And so to me, when I see those, I'm like, okay, throw that out. Don't want to work for that person or their team because, like, whoever they're managing, because that's going to be problematic. Because if they're within 30 seconds, then for a potential hour, they're like, well, I don't want this person, so now I'm just wasting time. Like, don't waste my time. So I think it's important that the interviewing team understands biases and has good, proper mechanisms in place that you come back, you have a discussion. Even if there's somebody that says no, there's a validation process that says, okay, let's talk about why, and make sure that there's not some underlying bias or heuristic at play that's potentially clouding the judgment. And I think that's super important. So yeah, even if one person seems off, don't let it bring you down, especially if you kind of see it during the interview, right? Like, don't let them with the hard questions or the way they're sitting. Like, that's one person out of potentially 5 people.
Right. Good point.
It's still 80%. It's still
Great.
passing.
Absolutely. And so you guys being doing the hiring yourself, what have you experienced when interviewing potential candidates? Is there a memorable, like, hey, I like this, and there was someone or something did something you didn't like? Anything off the top of your head come to mind in either category?
I mean, there's probably more negatives than there are on the positives of things like you shouldn't. Like, that's probably like another session of like the do's and don'ts. I would say the big thing for me, and same thing I try and do when I'm being interviewed, is just be honest, right? If that's not an area that you're familiar with, don't milk 5 to 10 minutes of trying to come up with an answer, because very easily discern that you don't know, and that's 10 minutes that you've wasted of time that potentially could have pivoted to something that you do know. So just be honest. Ask clarifying questions, or even blatantly state, like, I'm not sure. It's not really an area, but if we have a few minutes, I'd like to try and take a stab at it, walk through it, ask some questions to try and at least show how I would approach the problem, because you're not going to know everything that they need solved by walking in the door. You're going to come across stuff all the time you don't know, and that's okay. But don't BS your way through it. Ask questions, be honest, and just
good. And when you're doing the hiring, do you ever say, I'm going to put a gotcha question? If they don't give me a right answer, they're done. Do you don't ever have stuff like that?
No, I hate those things, or I really hate the questions of, tell me how your browser works, or how does DNS work? Look, buddy, I get you're trying to gauge how I think through a thing and show my thought process, but there are so many better ways to do that than garbage. How does the browser work? How does the internet work? Right? I don't know. Yeah. Do you know how the browser works? Do you know every file it touches, a registry key? Do you want me to go in? Because we can. And I'm going to start asking you questions and show that you don't really know the answer. In most cases, some people probably do, but a majority don't actually. Yeah, that's part of Armando's things of not to do. Don't do what I'm recommending, which is sometimes you have to flip the table a little bit. But
you should draw. Yeah. Well, go back to the point. If you're going to work in this environment, you're going to have to draw a line in the sand now. But so it's the hiring process today: resume reviews, interviewing. And then when you get someone in the seat, right? Can you reflect on the interview process, and did it play out the way you thought it was, or did it not play out the way you thought it was? Right? Did you feel like if you have a good hiring process, you're hey, I know what I'm signing up for, we give this guy an offer from your interview process, or it's oh man, this really worked out a different way I didn't see coming? Have you experienced one of those two ways, or either one?
Not from the actual job perspective. I feel like most of it was pretty accurate or spot on. I don't think there was any sleight of hand type motion. I would say the one thing I did learn over years and experiences is being more comfortable asking questions, especially on the cultural side of the organization and the specific teams. Because I think that's one thing I definitely didn't understand or think about as much early in my career. So I'd say that's probably more important, right? Is also understanding that it's an interview's two-way street. Yes, make sure that the job you're interviewing for matches what they're potentially asking, and make sure you have good questions to validate that. Talking about and paying attention to the things they say, or what types of questions they ask, to make sure you're potentially not being bait and switched.
Got it. Good.
But I would say it's on the cultural side is just make sure it's a place you want to work.
I definitely agree with that. I was very quiet my first couple of years applying, getting in and out of jobs, never asking enough questions. Never really looked at it as a two-way street. Just hey, they're asking me questions, let's go. But
they're interested, give me the money, and then we'll figure it out later.
Yeah. It's a great sign when you're interviewing. If you're prepared, you have questions, they'll be oh, yes. And it would help sell yourself absolutely to them, that you understand the business they're in, you understand what the job is. So and it's kind of cliche, but I agree with it. Yeah, not having questions at the end can be kind of concerning. But
here's pro tip: if you take out I like to have a piece of paper handy with questions on it, and sometimes they get answered during the interview. And so at the end, even if they already answered, they'll say, I had to have questions here, a question or two. It was already addressed early on. I don't have any clarifying things. Even if you're hey, I forgot, pull out that notepad at the beginning of the interview, and then at the end, just kind of pretend to look at it, write some things down, and say, all of my questions were interviewed. Even if you didn't prepare them, at least make it look like you did. Sometimes you got to fake it a little bit. Wouldn't recommend it. Show it prepared that way, because again, you want to prove that you work there as well. But if you forget, make it
good. And that reminds me of a great interviewing tip: over prepare their website, their LinkedIn profiles, their job. Just don't go and wing it. And
I found blog posts of interviews from years ago of the people that were interviewing me before leading into it, and I brought those up on the interview. They're like, I totally forgot I even wrote that blog post, and asked questions about it. It shows that, again, you did your homework on the company, the job, the people that are interviewing, right? Like where they come from, some of the past work, and it shows that you prepared.
You're interested and passionate about what they're doing. That's what people want to hire. Interested and passionate people.
For sure.
All right, let's go to the next. Let's see what we got left on this PowerPoint here. Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's me. You can find me at Kinetic Personnel Group, my direct hire number, my direct line number, my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter is kind of a little dated. There's my little 17-year-old now. He was like, he was tiny back then. That was right next to the warehouse where Mike used to work in a tie, creating PCs in the general area. Just hot. So great. Any other questions?
I think that's all I have.
I think
for
that's
today.
all I got.
All three viewers, four people that showed up. Thank you for showing up. We're glad you joined us.
Like 400. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it was quite a bit.
Oh, great. So, feel free to reach out to me. I love helping people, resume hats, career hats, interviewing hats. If you're going to a specific job and you're like, hey, how should I apply to this job? Send me the job description, send me your resume. I'll be happy to help. IT, at the end of the day, even nationwide, it is a small industry, and we all cross paths many times. It is a small industry, and I love to help. I love this industry, and especially where I'm working right here. It's our little tagline, but we help making businesses and careers just move. Absolutely. So yeah, reach out to me. Yeah,
Absolutely.
That's great. Yeah, thank you, Armando. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on.
Thank you guys. Thank you for giving me this platform, and great to catch up. And if you're ever in Southern California, you're welcome to stop by too. Absolutely. Love to see you guys in person.
That'd be cool.
Definitely.
Great guys.
We'll catch you soon.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good day. Thank you, everybody, for listening in. Have a good Atomic Friday.
Thanks, guys.